The morning sun broke softly over the quiet neighborhood of Gulmohar Enclave, its golden rays brushing the dewdrops off Mira's small garden. A steaming cup of masala chai sat on the wooden table as she hummed a tune from the 80s, gently watering her marigolds. This was her daily ritual, a moment of stillness before the household stirred awake. Inside the house, her 5-year-old grandson, Arav, was still tangled in his superhero bedsheets, his tiny hand clutching a toy truck. Her son, Raghav, had already left for work early, like he always did, leaving behind a kiss on her forehead and a whispered, "Take care, Ma." And his wife, Nisha, was likely still scrolling through her phone in bed, waiting for the maid to bring her morning coffee. Mira didn't mind. She had accepted the rhythm of their lives. Her role was simple. She was the caregiver, the silent backbone of the family. She cooked, cleaned, kept the home warm, and most of all, loved Arav like he was her second chance at motherhood. But by noon that day, Mira's world would shatter beyond recognition. It began with a phone call, the kind of call that drains the blood from your face and makes time freeze. The kind of call that changes everything in a single breath. "Is this Mrs. Mira Sharma? I'm calling from City Hospital. There's been an accident involving Mr. Raghav Sharma. I'm very sorry." Mira's knees buckled as she dropped the phone. Her heart pounded like a war drum in her chest. Nisha came running, irritated at first, but her face turned pale when she heard the word accident. They rushed to the hospital in silence, Nisha sobbing quietly, Mira gripping her sari as if it could hold her together. But no one could prepare her for what waited in that cold, white corridor. Raghav was gone, just like that. A collision on the highway, a drunk driver, a crushed sedan. Time of death 9:07 a.m. Mira didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just stood there, frozen, her fingers trembling as she touched her son's cold hand. Her boy, her only child, her life, gone. The following days passed in a blur of rituals, condolences, and muffled weeping. The house overflowed with relatives and neighbors offering their sympathies. Nisha clung to Arav like a shield, accepting condolences with mechanical nods, but rarely looking at Mira. On the 13th day, after the prayers and the last puja, everyone slowly trickled out. The once crowded home fell into a dreadful silence. That night, Mira sat alone in the puja room, staring at Raghav's photo. She had chosen the one where he was laughing, dimples deep, eyes full of mischief. He had always been her sunshine, her reason for surviving after her husband passed away decades ago. She whispered into the silence, "You left too soon, Beta. Who do I live for now?" The first signs of change were subtle. Nisha stopped calling Mira for dinner. She took over the bank paperwork and finances without discussing anything. Mira was left alone with the maid most days, her presence in the house slowly reduced to a shadow. One afternoon, she overheard Nisha speaking on the phone. "I can't wait forever. Once the estate is transferred, I'll sell this place and move to Gurgaon. She won't be a problem. Just an old woman with no rights. No money. No voice." The words hit Mira like daggers, but she stayed quiet. Maybe it was the grief. Maybe denial. But a few days later, Nisha came home with new locks for the doors. The house keys were taken from Mira, replaced with a sarcastic, "You don't need to go out anymore, do you?" Then came the real blow. "I think it's time you consider going back to your hometown," Nisha said one evening, as if discussing the weather. "You're just lingering around. Raghav is gone. Arav needs stability, not guilt and gloom." Mira looked at her, stunned. "This is my home too." Nisha scoffed. "No, it was Raghav's house. He paid the EMIs. You were just here, temporarily. And now, your time is up." The words shattered whatever pieces of hope Mira had left. She looked at her grandson playing in the corner, oblivious to the cruelty of adults. Her chest ached, not just from grief, but from betrayal. That night, the rain came down in angry sheets. Thunder roared across the sky as if the heavens themselves were protesting. Mira stood in the doorway, holding a torn umbrella and a small bag filled with a few clothes, medicines, and her late husband's photo. Nisha leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I'm being generous. I could have thrown you out without a word. Be grateful I let you stay this long." Arav peeked from behind the curtain, confusion in his eyes. "Dady, where are you going?" Mira's voice cracked. "Just for a little while, Beta. Be good." She wanted to hug him one last time, but Nisha blocked her path. "Don't confuse him." With a heavy heart, Mira turned and stepped into the storm, the door slamming behind her like the end of a chapter she never agreed to write. On the street, soaked to the bone, she walked through the dark like a ghost. No home, no money, no son, and a grandchild ripped from her arms. As the cold wind bit into her skin, one thought echoed louder than the thunder. She promised to leave me penniless, but she doesn't know what Ragav left behind. And somewhere in that wet, broken night, a spark was lit, not of revenge, but of justice. The days that followed Mira's exile were as cruel as the betrayal itself. She found herself standing outside the gates of an old friend's home. Mr. Varma, a retired district judge and her late husband's closest confidant. He hadn't seen her in years, but the moment he opened the door and saw her soaked, disabled, and shivering, he knew something terrible had happened. "My God, Mira, what? What happened to you?" he stammered, ushering her inside. She didn't have the words then, just tears. For the next few days, Mr. Varma and his wife Indira gave her what no one else had: warmth, food, and a roof over her head. But peace, that was a luxury Mira couldn't afford. Every corner of her heart throbbed with the weight of grief, and now, something darker. Betrayal. It crept in like a slow poison. She had raised Nisha like a daughter, defended her when others criticized her aloofness, loved her despite the indifference. And Nisha, she had waited like a vulture until Ragav was gone. Mira couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She lay awake every night replaying Ragav's laughter, his voice, his silly jokes. The way he used to say, "Ma, you're the strongest woman I know. If anything happens to me, I know you'll protect my family." Those words now felt like a cruel joke. Because she wasn't protecting anyone. She had lost her son, her grandson, her home, everything. Or so she thought. One morning, Mira sat with Mr. Varma on the veranda, sipping tea she could barely taste. He looked at her over his glasses. "You haven't told me the full story." "There's not much to tell," Mira said quietly, looking at her trembling hands. "My son died. His wife threw me out." "That's it, Mira," he said firmly. "That's not a story. That's a crime." She looked at him, startled. He continued, "I've seen a lot in my years on the bench, and I've seen women like Nisha before. You think she changed after Ragav's death? But I'll bet you anything. She was always like this, just hiding behind your son's kindness." Mira wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Deep down, she knew. Ragav used to dismiss it as stress or mood swings, but there were signs. The way Nisha dismissed her contributions to the household, the way she looked at money, the way she controlled decisions, even those that didn't concern her. "I have nothing left, Varma, gee," Mira whispered. "Not even proof she cheated me?" "Are you sure?" he asked. She frowned, thinking. "I packed in a hurry. Only had time to grab a few things. Go through everything you brought. Every paper. Every document. You never know what you might find." That afternoon, Mira opened the worn brown handbag she had stuffed in a panic that rainy night. Old photos. An old savings account passbook. Her husband's pension papers. And then an envelope. Unmarked, sealed. Addressed to Advocate Arjun Mohatra. She stared at it, confused. When she tore it open, her heart almost stopped. Inside was a hand-written note from Ragav, dated just 2 weeks before his death. "Dear Arjun, please prepare the final draft of the updated will. As we discussed, I want to transfer the primary ownership of the house to my mother, Mira Sharma, and a trust account for Arav's future. I want to ensure that both of them are protected in case something happens to me. I've made my decision. Please process this before the month ends. Regards, Ragav." Mira's hands shook as she held the letter, her vision blurred with tears. He knew. Somewhere in his heart, he had known that something was off. He had tried to protect her. And Nisha, she didn't know. Or she knew and ignored it. Either way, it wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, Mira went to the address scribbled in the corner of the letter. A modest office on the second floor of a quiet building. A glass nameplate read, Arjun Malhotra and Associates, Family and Property Law inside. A well-dressed man in his late 30s looked up from his desk as she entered.
Yes.
I'm Mira Sharma, mother of Raghav Sharma. He was your client. Recognition lit his face.
Ah, yes.
Of course. I'm so sorry for your loss. Mrs. Sharma, Raghav was a good man. We spoke recently, just a couple of weeks before the accident. Amira handed him the letter. As he read, his brows furrowed, then rose. Did you not receive the final copy of the will? Mira shook her head. Arjun stood, walked over to a filing cabinet, and pulled out a sealed folder. He opened it and laid the documents out in front of her. Raghav came to me urgently, Arjun explained. He had suspicions. Concerns about his wife. He said he wanted to make sure that if anything happened to him, you and Arav would be safe. He signed the final will 2 days after this letter. He handed her the last page. Raghav's signature was there. Clear, bold, and beneath it, a clause. In the event of my death, I hereby declare Mira Sharma, my mother, as the sole legal guardian of my son, Arav Sharma, and the primary heir to all immovable property, liquid assets, and parental authority over all trust accounts created in his name. My wife, Nisha Sharma, is to be excluded from ownership and control of said assets due to personal and financial concerns. Amira's mouth went dry. She looked up slowly. You mean all of it? The house? The bank accounts? Arjun nodded. Everything. And I have one more thing. He opened a USB flash drive and connected it to his laptop. A video loaded. Raghav's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but calm, determined. Ma, if you're watching this, it means I'm not with you anymore. I know this is hard, but I need you to listen. I've updated the will. I've seen changes in Nisha. There's a darkness there. I don't want Arav to grow up around that. I trust you, Ma. You raised me right. Raise him the same way. Fight for what's his. And yours, I love you. The screen faded to black. Mira stared at it for a long moment, then closed her eyes. The storm inside her heart had found direction. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about honoring her son's final wish. Meanwhile, back in her son's house, Nisha sat with a smug smile, sipping wine. She had just contacted a property dealer about listing the house. In her mind, Mira was gone. Out of the picture, and everything Raghav built was hers now. She had no idea what was coming. And when the letter from the family court arrived a week later, delivered by hand by Advocate Arjun himself, her smile vanished like smoke in the wind. The courtroom summons reached Nisha on a Thursday afternoon, tucked in a white envelope with the golden emblem of the family and property division stamped on it. She opened it with lazy curiosity, until her eyes caught the words, Petition to enforce last will and testament of Raghav Sharma, filed by Mrs. Mira Sharma, mother of the deceased. Her fingers went stiff. Last will. She muttered, reading the document over again. Her lips parted slightly as panic began to creep in. She had gone through all of Raghav's documents, hadn't she? She had made sure to delete everything from his email. Shredded bank statements. Even lied to the insurance company about Mira's whereabouts. So where did this will come from? Her hands trembled as she read further. Primary beneficiary Mira Sharma, secondary beneficiary Arav Sharma seer via guardian Mira Sharma. Spouse of the deceased is excluded from any claim to property, assets, or guardianship. Nisha dropped the paper. No, she whispered.
No. This can't be real.
Meanwhile, back at Mr. Varma's home, Mira prepared for the legal battle. She never imagined she'd have to fight in her old age. Arjun had taken over the case entirely. Calm, intelligent, and razor-focused, he wasn't just her lawyer anymore. He had become her unexpected ally. During their long meetings, Arjun learned more about Mira's life, how she'd raised Raghav alone after her husband died of a sudden heart attack when Raghav was just 5, how she'd worked 2 jobs, First as a school librarian, then as a part-time typist, to put him through college. How she had poured her entire being into building a life for him. He was all I had, Mira said one evening, staring out the window. And now, even after his death, they're trying to erase me from his life. Arjun, sitting across from her, looked solemn. They won't succeed, Mira G. Not while I'm representing you. She smiled weakly. Why are you helping me so much, Beta? You could have just handed me the will and left it at that. He hesitated before replying. Because I've seen women like Nisha destroy good families, and I've also seen too many mothers like you suffer in silence. Raghav trusted me with his final wish. I won't let that trust be broken. Mira wiped a tear before it could fall. Maybe she wasn't so alone after all. The courtroom was a gray, air-conditioned box with peeling walls and a judge who looked too tired for the kind of battle that was about to unfold. But for Mira, it was a battlefield, and every heartbeat was a drum of war. Nisha walked in wearing a crisp designer sari, eyes sharp, lips curled in practiced grief. She held Arav's hand tightly, using him like a prop. The moment she saw Mira seated beside Arjun, calm and composed in her simple cotton sari, her eyes narrowed. The judge, Justice Rajan Pillai, called both parties forward. Arjun stood. Your Honor, we are here to execute the final will and testament of the late Raghav Sharma, duly signed and witnessed, along with a supporting video statement from the deceased. Anisha's lawyer, a well-known property shark named Mr. Sinha, smirked. Would contest the will on the grounds of coercion and emotional manipulation. Mrs. Nisha Sharma, as the legal wife, has the first claim. Arjun raised a hand calmly. Not if the deceased explicitly revoked her rights in his will. And Your Honor, we have video evidence where Mr. Raghav Sharma states his concerns clearly, dated and time-stamped. He plugged in the USB and played the video. Raghav's face filled the courtroom screen. The moment his voice echoed in the hall, Nisha froze. If you're watching this, something has happened to me. Please know, I made this choice after careful thought. My wife and I have grown apart. There are things I've seen, heard, things I cannot ignore. My mother raised me to believe in honesty, loyalty, and compassion. I want Arav to grow up with those values. I want my mother to guide him. Please honor this decision. Silence followed. The judge removed his glasses and sighed. This seems very clear. But Nisha wasn't ready to surrender. She stood up abruptly. Your Honor, this is emotional blackmail. He was under pressure. My mother-in-law is not fit to raise a child alone. She's unstable, grieving, and...
Enough!
Justice Pillai banged the gavel. This court will not tolerate such baseless attacks without proof. Unless you have solid evidence to prove the will is forged or manipulated, we will proceed based on the legal documents and the deceased's expressed wishes. Anisha sat down, humiliated. For the first time in weeks, she realized she was losing. That evening, outside the courtroom, Nisha confronted Mira in the parking lot. You think you've won, she hissed. You're an old woman with no idea how the world works. I'll drag this case for years if I have to. You'll die waiting for justice. Amira looked at her with a calmness that unnerved Nisha. I may be old, Mira said softly, but I've already survived more than you ever could. And now I have my son's voice on my side. You can fight me, Nisha. But you won't win. Not this time. A days passed, and more hearings followed. Every time Nisha tried to stall the case, Arjun countered her with calm brilliance and solid evidence. The will was verified. Witnesses confirmed Raghav's visit to Arjun's office. Even the handwriting experts validated his signature. The court finally set a date for the final ruling. That night, Mira sat in her borrowed room, staring at her late son's photo. You gave me the strength. Beta, she whispered. And tomorrow, we take back what you left for us. The morning of the final hearing broke, with golden light streaming across the city. But for Mira, it felt like the calm before a storm. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her simple beige sari, hands steady despite the storm of emotions within. Her silver hair was neatly tied back, her eyes tired, but determined, mister. Varma placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder before she stepped into the car with Advocate Arjun. You've come this far, Mira, he said. Don't let her words rattle you today. The truth is your shield, Mira nodded. I'm not afraid anymore. I was, but not now. I have my son with me. Courtroom nummy 6 was filled more than usual. A few media personnel were in the back. Someone had leaked the story of the mother-in-law Via's widow, property battle of a wealthy businessman. Whispers floated through the room like smoke. But Mira ignored them all. Across the aisle, Nisha sat in icy silence, her lawyer, Mr. Sinha, flipping through last-minute papers. Her makeup was flawless, her sari elegant, her posture defiant. But behind the mask, her fingers trembled ever so slightly. The judge entered. Justice Pillai looked older than before, wearied by the weight of daily human conflict. But today, something in his gaze was sharp, focused. He looked at both parties, adjusted his spectacles, and began. The court has carefully reviewed all submitted documents, including the will, the video statement of the deceased Raghav Sharma, and affidavits from witnesses who confirmed the legal standing of the document. The forensic analysis confirms the handwriting and signature are authentic. He paused, looking directly at Nisha. The court finds no legal basis to reject the will. A stunned silence fell. Then, slowly, a few gasps from the back. Nisha stood up, stammering, Your Honor, please. He was misled. He was under stress.
This is not justice!
Justice Pillai raised a firm hand. Sit down, Mrs. Sharma, she froze. The court recognizes Mrs. Mira Sharma as the primary legal heir and guardian of Arav Sharma. All immovable property, including the house in Gulmohar Enclave, liquid assets in Raghav Sharma's personal and joint accounts, and custody of the child Arav Sharma, are to be transferred to Mrs. Sharma effective immediately. Amira felt the breath leave her body. Not because she was surprised, but because something deep inside her had finally exhaled after weeks of suffocation. Justice Pillai added one last note. The court also recommends child counseling for Arav to assist with this transition. Mrs. Sharma, we hope you continue to provide the moral and emotional upbringing your son requested in his final wishes. With a bang of the gavel, it was done. The courtroom emptied quickly, but Mira sat still for a moment longer, silently whispering a prayer. Outside the courtroom, Nisha cornered Arjun, eyes blazing. You think this is over? I'll appeal. I'll go to the High Court. I'll destroy you. Arjun simply stared back. You're welcome to try. But every move you make now will only bury your reputation further. You weren't just defeated, Nisha. You were exposed? She turned her fury to Mira. You'll regret this. Amira met her gaze. No fear, no hate, just quiet strength. I already regret trusting you. But I'll never regret protecting my grandson. Anisha clenched her jaw and stormed off, her heels clicking furiously down the corridor. It was over. A week later, Mira returned to her home. It felt strange at first. The walls still whispered of Raghav. The air still carried echoes of the life that once was. But there was something different now. A presence. A peace. Arjun helped her set up a small home office in the study. I'll send someone to help with the financial paperwork and get the trust fund for Arav rolling. She smiled. Thank you, Beta. Not just for this, but for standing by me when I had no one. He smiled. Raghav stood by you, Mira. Jay. I just did my part. Arav returned a few days later, accompanied by a court-appointed child psychologist and a counselor. At first, he was quiet, confused, distant, but children are remarkable. Within days, he began to adjust. The fear in his eyes faded. The smile returned. One evening, Mira found him sitting in Raghav's old chair, holding a photo frame. Dadi, he whispered. Papa told me you'd take care of me. She knelt beside him, her hand gently cradling his small face. And I will, my child. Always. Amira used a portion of the estate to set up a charitable trust in Raghav's name. The Raghav Foundation for Widows and Abandoned Elders. It wasn't just about charity. It was about justice. For women like her who were thrown away when they were no longer useful. For the mothers, the widows, the forgotten, she held workshops, funded shelters, used her story to inspire change. What began as heartbreak had become a mission. Months later, on Raghav's birthday, Mira and Arav lit a diya at the family altar. The boy had grown stronger, livelier, his laughter now a daily gift. After he went to bed, Mira sat by the window and opened her journal. Her hands didn't tremble now. Her heart was no longer heavy. She wrote, "Da, they tried to strip me of dignity, family, and legacy, but truth has its own timing. Rav, your voice carried me through the silence. And now your son is safe. Your home is ours again. They promised to leave me penniless. But what they didn't know was that a mother's strength can never be written out of a will." The morning sun poured gently through the curtains of the house that once felt like a prison to Mira. But now it felt like home again. For the first time in months, the walls of the Gulmohar Enclave house didn't echo with silence or sorrow. They echoed with life. The smell of cardamom chai drifted through the air. Arav's laughter bounced down the hallway as he played with his building blocks. A soft devotional song played on the radio. There was peace in every corner. Mira stood in the kitchen, her kitchen now, kneading dough with practiced hands and a heart no longer weighed down by fear. The world hadn't made space for her. She had carved it herself. Since the court verdict, Nisha had disappeared, quietly and completely. Mira had heard rumors through neighbors, a rented flat in Gurgaon, an unsuccessful appeal to a higher court, and finally, an attempt to claim alimony that was swiftly dismissed based on the contents of Raghav's updated will. She had been defeated not by cunning, or wealth, or lawyers, but by the one thing she had never understood, a mother's unbreakable love. And now, Mira wasn't looking back. Arav adjusted faster than anyone expected. There were tantrums at first, of course. He missed his father. He asked why his mother didn't call. But Mira never lied. "She loves you in her own way, Beta," she would say gently. "But Papa wanted you to grow up in a place full of love and kindness. And we're going to do just that together." Children understand more than we think. And over time, Arav stopped asking about Nisha. Instead, he started calling Mira a daddy, a half-mother, half-grandmother. Entirely his, the house too changed. Mira repainted Raghav's study and turned it into a reading and activity room for Arav. The guest room was transformed into a small office for her new cause, the Raghav Foundation. She spent her days speaking at women's shelters, organizing legal workshops for elderly women thrown out of their homes, and partnering with retired judges like Mr. Varma to help the forgotten reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Her case had made headlines, not for the scandal, but for the strength. The story of a mother-in-law fighting not for property, but for her son's final wish and her grandson's future. She didn't fight back for revenge, one article said. She fought back because love wouldn't let her give up. One evening, nearly a year after Raghav's passing, Mira found herself sitting in the garden, the same one where she used to sip chai and watch the sun rise. The marigolds had returned. The soil had healed, just like her. Arav ran outside carrying a piece of paper.
Daddy!
"Look what I made in school." She took the sheet and smiled. It was a drawing, 3 stick figures, a tall man, a woman in a sari with glasses, and a small boy holding both their hands. He had labeled them Papa, Madi, me. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from something deeper. A promise fulfilled, a bond preserved, a love that refused to be erased. That night, after tucking Arav into bed, Mira returned to her room. She lit a diya in front of Raghav's framed photo, surrounded by white flowers. Then she sat down with her journal, her pen flowing freely. "My dearest Raghav, you were right. Love found its way home, though they tried to take everything you left me. Your house, your child, your legacy. But what they didn't understand is that I didn't need your money to survive. I only needed your trust, Badappa, and you gave me that. I will raise Arav with the same values you carried in your heart. I will protect what you loved. I will carry your light forward. We are no longer just surviving. Now we are living. We are home. Day epilogue 1 year later, the foundation had grown. Mira now worked alongside lawyers, women's rights groups, and child welfare organizations. Her story had inspired dozens of elderly women to come forward with their own tales of betrayal and injustice. Some found shelter. Others found legal victories. But all of them found hope. And Arav, he was thriving. He made new friends, took up painting, and every night before bed he whispered, "Good night, Papa," to the stars outside his window. Mira watched him grow with pride and a quiet sense of wonder. Not many people get a second chance at motherhood. She had lost a son, but gained a cause. And in doing so, she had restored not just a home, but a heart